another exciting episode of the OKR Q&A Podcast, also known as the OKR Corral, where OKR Insight is the king. I'm your host, Tim Meinhardt, President and CEO of Atruity, an OKR consultancy headquartered in our nation's capital. Today, in this exciting episode, we're spending a few minutes with Paul Maunder. Paul's a sales director for Red Hat's Sled West sales organization. Paul's a graduate of Cal State and has spent most of his professional career in technology, where his passion for leadership and team building produce outstanding performance. He is energetic and it is seriously contagious. Please welcome Paul Maunder. Paul, good afternoon. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Tim, good afternoon. My name is Paul Maunder, and I work for Red Hat. I am the West Region Sales Director responsible for our government and public healthcare business. Yeah, been here about 2.5 years. Strong and long history in the public sector market.
So you and I were talking offline before we got started a little bit about your background with OKRs prior to Paul and Red Hat putting these into play. Mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your past experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So started off at Hewlett-Packard for about 16 years there and really focused in the government and enterprise space. Got to learn a little bit about the OKR methodology with our relationship with Intel. But really, it took a new level when I joined Palo Alto Networks, the cybersecurity company. And we were really focused on core objectives, things that salespeople did, activities that helped us get to our business results. So we didn't call them OKRs at the time, but they were really the things that we would do to help drive our quota attainment, virtual EBCs, things like that. Tim, did you want me to go through some of those with you?
Sure, absolutely. Share a couple of your thoughts. This is an open mic and a fun few minutes. So please.
Yeah. So we actually did. So it was really cool because at the end of each quarter, we'd take a look around. Okay, sales objectives. Did we meet our quota? How many meetings did we have? How many evals? How many proof of concepts? And when we look at what successful reps did, and we backed into the number of activities, workshops, things like that, you could always see that the reps who were very successful really focused backwards on the activities to drive the right behaviors and the right result. I always thought that was very helpful. And so I've been a fan of measurement and forecasting and analysis to help get to the number.
Sure. So what was your initial impression of objectives and key results as we started walking our way into it?
Yeah, it's funny. At first I was like, what is this? This is like, they're forcing me into focusing on areas. But when you think about what it is that we do all the time, you can easily get distracted with activities that you think are going to drive revenue. But then all of a sudden you end up at the end of a quarter and you go, wait, I feel like I did a lot of things, but I only finished at 70% of my goal. So were you really focused on the right activities and the right objectives to get you to where you needed to be? No. So when you start focusing in on OKRs and you work with a team and you put the OKRs together, right? And you can all come up with, okay, these are the things that we're going to do as a team to get to our goal. Then you can measure on a weekly basis. Hey, are we driving down the road? Are we getting to the goal line? If not, do we need to course correct? Do we need to implement 2 more workshops? Do I have enough executive briefings? Have I done enough proof of concepts, unsolicited proposals, phone calls, right? So it really helps you get to what I call what matters.
Right.
And from my perspective, if we could just do 1% more than anybody else, we'll win 100% of those deals. And the OKR Foundation helps us get there.
Right. You mentioned something that I think I'd like to expand upon just briefly, which is the consensus. You know, when we do your team's OKRs, you have everybody on the call, everybody either in a virtual video conference as they are today, but everybody has a chance to weigh in. And so you get this bottom-up kind of consensus and buy-in, as well as your top-down viewpoint. And when we ended up with a level set, it seems that everybody is, well, I'll say, bought into the whole concept.
Yeah, that's important to me as a sales leader. I like to have consensus built with my team, because if we're all going to be in that rowboat, I want to know that we're all rowing in the same direction so that we can maximize our speed. We could all be focused on the goal. And if everybody feels they contributed and knows that their contributions matter to the overall success of our district or our sled business in general, then that gives everybody a wonderful feeling at the end of a quarter or at the end of the year when we've hit those numbers that they contributed, they added value, that what their work mattered. Because I think that's kind of like the DNA and the genesis of what we all do is, did I contribute and add value? Making money is wonderful, but did I help the organization succeed? More importantly, have I helped my customer be successful, right? And that's, I think, ultimately what we get to. And having everybody bought into our story and our strategy and where we're heading and the road we're trying to get there, it means a lot to me. And I always, on my one-on-ones with my reps, I go over those things with them on a pretty regularly basis to make sure that it's still top of mind with them and it stays fresh with me as well.
Sure. What do you think, or what was your largest challenge in getting started with OKRs, Paul?
Yeah, good question. It was probably trying to do too many things, trying to really understand, what are the core objectives to focus on, what really matters. And I think it took us a couple of quarters to figure that out.
Sure.
I also wanted everything to be green. And there was a couple of quarters where I had red, where I didn't meet my objectives. And it was a matter of, did I not focus on it, or did I set that stretch target too far?
Right.
And having conversations with you, Tim, helps me understand that, sometimes you're not going to get to everything that you had. And having that stretch is really what it's all about. So
sure.
I think focus and then zeroing in on how can my team map to kind of Paul Smith's NAP's overall objectives, down to Nancy's, down to me, and then the individual reps.
Absolutely. So let's reverse it for a second. What was your biggest success story that you'd like to share with our audience about OKRs? Any story, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, it's probably this most recent quarter. I've been here a little over 2.5 years, and we kind of muddled along as a district because we had some turnover, we had some new accounts, we were reestablishing the Red Hat messaging to our customers that were much more than RHEL. This past quarter, I'm so excited to say that we are the top district in all of North America public sector. And I really feel that the reason for that was we have the right people, we had the right focus, the right messaging, along with the right technology. And the analogy I used earlier with all rowing together, we really are rowing together. So I felt really good that we delivered. And when I stood up and showed all the green in my OKRs, 100% attainment of the number, 100% of people on board, 100% of working with the channel, all those things felt good. And it gives us the ability to take a look at, okay, this is what we did last quarter. Now let's establish a new goal and let's go do it again next quarter.
Sure. It kind of gets everybody really motivated,
Yeah.
And when they had a part of developing those, you get that buy-in, you get those people really focused, and off to the races you go. Congratulations. I know you had a fantastic quarter.
Yeah.
So what about advice? Someone is interested in possibly putting this into their organization, and but they're unsure. What advice would you give them about the process and what you went through and those kind of things?
Yeah, I'd start with the book, right? I think the Andy Grove book is really important. And understanding, or was it
John Doerr, right?
Yeah, John Doerr, which is funny because I think, because Doerr actually.
Out of Andy, right?
Yeah. But ultimately, if you think about getting everybody to read and also go do some research on what OKRs are and you take a look at who's using them, very successful companies. And if they're using them and they're successful, why can't your company be successful as well? Yeah. But you do, and Tim, you mentioned this, you got to get everybody to buy into them. You got to get everybody to try them. And everyone's going to have different success. But ultimately, what it comes down to is better focus, which allows you to have measurement, and then ultimately look at the results and then shift if needed, because you may not be hitting on all cylinders, or something may change during the quarter. Oh my God, my customers aren't buying this. So this allows us to pivot and maybe change one component of the OKR for that quarter without having to rewrite the whole playbook.
Right. Well, Paul, when people listen to this, we're still in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic. And, I watched your organization as this whole thing began to unfold, and having the OKRs in place from a management perspective, slight alterations, whether they were face-to-face versus video conferencing, but y'all didn't miss a beat on this. And I think that's a credit not only to your organization, but the way that it was structurally set up with the right collaboration, the right focus, and the right alignment, and staying focused through what arguably is probably one of the, if not one of the most controversially and difficult situations that we've faced ever as adults. So what was the one burning question, Paul, that you had about OKRs, and what was the answer that you found?
Good question, Tim. Yeah. It was probably, so for me, it's, is this sustainable? Are OKRs sustainable? And I have to believe they are. And whether you call them OKRs or core objectives or measuring the sales code and measuring what matters, to me, it's up-leveling your sales knowledge such that your sales team is the most productive they can be, the most focused they could be, to help your business get the results that they need to have to be successful in the marketplace. And ultimately, I think when you have better focus, you have better goals, and you continually iterate and you talk about them, then everybody's going to be rowing in the same direction, and your company's it's going to be successful.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Paul, thank you. I'm going to leave with this one final question of sorts. To you, any final thoughts you'd like to let our audience know about your experiences with OKRs and your enjoyment of the success that you've had with them?
Yeah, no, Tim, I have every Monday morning at 8 a.m., I have in my calendar, update my OKRs. And it's a time for me to take a look at where they are. What are my key objectives? What is my activity for the week? What is down the road 2 weeks? What's down the road next quarter? When I keep it in front of me, it makes it more focused. It makes me want to remember basically that I have activities that I need to do as well. So that to me is the one thing I would take away from this whole experience, is that when you make it part of your habit, it becomes a successful habit, and it's life-changing as a sales leader, because it helps you deliver on your promise to the company, as well as help you better communicate the goal that your team is trying to achieve. And then they can understand when they have a number, what the measurement is and the activities that help them get to that number, so that we can all row together.
Yeah, being consistent in the management practices of OKRs, we think is critical. And it reminds me of that very simple statement: you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And surprisingly, as you mentioned earlier, it's not something that you're really, it takes